So, Sarah, it's 8 o'clock here.
And 4 o'clock here.
Yeah, exactly. I just was going to say that.
Yep. Here we are in our arms wrapped around the globe.
Yeah. Let's start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome to our topic today, which is dealing with fragments of information, which I wanted to share with you this interesting situation I have with my son, who, by the way, is also systemically trained. But we were having this conversation. I had been watching the movie about Tchaikovsky's life. And I was talking about the content of the movie. And my son is also a writer, producer, actor, director. And so we were talking about because he was struggling with homosexuality in the 1800s, we started talking about homosexuality across the ages, how it was represented in different times and what the response was to that socially. And then we started talking about where were you more free to express that versus where you were not so free to express that. And was it to do with freedom of expression that meant in the arts there seems to be a lot of representation of it as opposed to other domains? So this really, really rich, roaming conversation. It was lovely, delightful to be having this conversation. And then we started talking about information and sources of information. And he said, I like when I have a piece of information, like you've got this information about Tchaikovsky, but what I want to know is the source of that information. So is it a projection? Has somebody got an agenda? Are they trying to advocate a position? Or has it actually come from Tchaikovsky himself? And because it's very different if somebody's projected a story around something as opposed to somebody's lived experience. Like mother, like son, I went researching to find out and found out that this was actually in Tchaikovsky's letters. And so the film was actually coming from his journal and his letters and, from a source. And it felt like it just spoke to this whole idea of, do we have all of the information, or do we have a good source of information? Or are we dealing with a fragment of information that could be interpreted many, many, many different ways? And so there could be many other pieces to the information to have the whole picture of what this information represents. And so we've been talking about this in light of world events. So do we have fractions of information about Ukraine, or fractions of information about Russia, or fractions of information about what's going on in America or in the Netherlands or in Australia or wherever? And what gets activated in us when we get a fraction, a piece of information, and how do we actually work with that piece of information in a way that is true, if you like, or we're not projecting things onto it that actually don't even exist in relation to that information. So, yeah, I thought it was a really good illustration. And so we were playing with this whole notion and how people can take very strong stands on a fraction of information because it activates something in their system. And so that can lead to all sorts of difficulties in communicating with people about difficult topics. And I think, Seats, you had a lovely closer to home story about a fragment of information and, what can happen with them.
Well, it's not that lovely, to be honest. My husband and I, we have 3 children, and I always thought it was a joy to grow up in our household, that it was a pleasure to be raised by great parents like us. And then last week, I discovered that my oldest son, Casper, who is now 19, has a completely different view of what it's like to live in our household and what it's like to be raised by parents like us than I always thought he had, and then I always thought that we found important. So he is a student and he didn't pass his year, so he needs to redo it. And he didn't tell us. So he was holding this information inside of him for, I think, about 6 months. And I was really in shock because I thought we are open and that we communicate. And I always thought that our children felt that they could talk about anything with us. But now I discovered that's not true at all. So my perspective as his mother is completely different. I hold different information than he does. And the thing with these fragments of information is that they become portals when not managed well. When you think your part of the information is the truth, or you fall in love with your own information, then it becomes a portal and it attracts all kinds of projections and all kinds of assumptions. And then you start defining the world according to your own fragment of information, like I did as the mother of these 3 children. So it was quite a job this week to detach myself from it and really to open up to the thought is that it's just a part I'm holding. And yes, I want to do my research, but in something as subjective and as close literally to home as this, it's really hard to do research. So I need to figure out a different strategy. I'm not finished yet. I'm still full in this process. And maybe this is an invitation for our breakout rooms. Can you share the slide, Sarah?
Absolutely. So this is our invitation for our breakouts to take a recent experience that you've had with fragmented information and just to really slow down. And sometimes it might take a little searching for that characteristic, but also then to, as you notice that you're dealing with a fragment, what's the impact on you and what's the impact on the other people you're engaging with or the people that the information is about? What is the effect of having this fragmented information? And then the very important practical question, which is what strategy did you, in your case, use to face it? I had a recent experience just in the last week where somebody completely, I could watch the misunderstanding folding over time, and didn't matter what I did to try and address it, it just persisted. And so I had to let it go and let it come to a critical crunch in order for an opening to happen. And then the other idea here is to explore together what other possible strategies might you use in the presence of this fragmented information? So you can think about it together.
And of course, I'm really interested in your strategies. I need one.
I need many. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay, I'm going to open the breakout rooms. You're with groups of 3. I will call you back in 15 minutes.
Welcome back. Yes.
And as usual, we'd love you to, share some thoughts or insights. You can do it in the chat. You can also raise your physical hand. If you're lucky, we see it, we'll give you the turn, or you can raise your digital hands, raise hands, the yellow hands.
Net, straight up.
Yeah, Jeanette. So, Jeanette, please turn on your microphone and let us know what you want to say.
Yes, thank you. I don't know, I can't find my yellow hand, but very interesting. We got some insights about ourselves, of course. That is not about a strategy, because the strategy is from your mind, from your ego, finding a solution that never works. It's more about being in the here now. And next to that, not only be in the here now and feel the connection, but stay with the connection, because this splitted information brings yourself to your head. And when you're in your head, you immediately split yourself from being the we, from being the connection. So yeah, it's really interesting, because well, me for myself was looking for a strategy. So how can I do this different? But it's searching for the gateway to stay inside yourself and not leaving yourself. So that's really great, this exploration. So thank you for that.
Beautiful.
Thank you for sharing, Jeanette. Anyone else?
I can't find my hand as well, but I do have my own hand.
Start talking.
Well, I brought the topic more at home and discussed the relationship between me and my husband, and that now we are consulting in a systemic mediator. And she confronted me while I've been doing quite some work, taking my own projection towards myself. And she confronted that it's still going on, there's still the same pattern going on, which I have diagnosed quite 7 years ago. So that was a bit of disappointing for myself and eye-opener as well. And now, so I could not be sure that the dynamic which is going on quite some time in the feeling, in the moment, is not quite a good radar, not always. So now I have, let's say, I'm now already experimenting with a new strategy to afterwards more look like a neutral point of view back to the discussion. So taking the experiences from the conversation and then afterwards reflect on purely a viewing point, not thinking, not feeling, but attaching the viewpoint of like I'm the neutral third one in the room. And it's making me already calmer in the conversation, since I have the commitment with myself that I'm going to review from a different point of view afterwards. I don't have a result yet. I'm still figuring it out. But it already makes me calmer in the conversation and gives me new information afterwards. And of course, the third one in the room, like mediator, is also very helpful. Zooming out and scanning instead of thinking, feeling, but doing it all together brings new perspectives.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah. And whatever the outcome is, it will be better for this process. Yeah.
I'm sure.
So yeah, I see your hand. You've raised your hand as well.
Yeah, with a lot of effort. I didn't hear what Anouk was saying because I was looking for the Liado hand. Anyway, well, we were talking about this topic. Some image came to mind that we were talking about working fragmentedly, working with fragments. And then the image came to me that when you have multiple perspectives and you can look inside from those perspectives. It's like a diamond, so to say. So you have these different colors coming in or going out, I don't know, but looking inside, it's getting clearer and clearer, like there's just the light. That's the only thing I wanted to share, this image. Just practicing how to express it, because, yeah, I didn't talk about it yet.
It's a great metaphor. Thank you.
Thanks. And now I don't know how to unraise my hand, sorry.
Oh, you're fine. We're going to close this meeting in a minute anyway. Sarah, is there anything you'd like to say to close?
Yeah. For me, you know, when I think about this notion of fragmented information, it activates a desire in me to want to know what else, you know, so it helps me be less attached to what it is I'm thinking or feeling or taking the perspective on. And so a little bit what, like you were saying, calms me down. It, you know, it creates more spaciousness to understand that it's a fragment and that's not everything. And I always think that helps with the connection with another. We can create this spaciousness that we can allow for the fact that there's lots of different elements. And also for when people are doing that to me, if I can step back and notice that that's what's happening, then I can have much more compassion for what's actually going on rather than getting activated over being misunderstood or somebody forcing something on me. So that spaciousness that it gives me to remember that information, particularly a fragment.
Yeah. Okay, thank you all for joining us.